Intuitive people are revealing the scariest moments when they knew something wasn't right, and they're jaw-dropping. I don't usually stop for strangers at midnight, but something in my gut made me slam on my brakes for that woman. It's terrifying when your body can just sense that something around you is off, yet you have no clue why. So when we asked people what their scariest something's not right moments were, I knew that the responses would be chilling, but I didn't think they'd be this creepy. Here are some of the responses that had me on the edge of my ergonomic office chair.
Late at night, I was sitting in my car waiting for my boyfriend to finish his shift. A guy walks past and we make eye contact. Feel this sense of danger, but figure I'm overreacting. A few minutes pass and the fear won't go away. I finally decide to move my car away from the edge of the parking lot to the front of the restaurant in the customer parking area. I start up my car, and just as I'm putting it into drive, the guy rushes out from behind and tries to yank open my door, pulling on it really hard. I hit the gas and he trails me for a second, then hits my window with a rock. I keep going, and he throws the rock at me, then runs away. I was shaking so badly, I could barely steer. Pretty sure he was sneaking up on me just as I decided to start my engine. Scary scene 2. I was working on a radio system in the local water tower of a pretty remote outback town. It was a beautiful late spring day in October when I got there. But after about 2 hours, the bird noises stopped. The breeze stopped. I took my equipment out of standby and set it up as a live test because I had the weirdest feeling I didn't have time to fully test it. Then I went outside to sit in the car. About 90 seconds later, there was a direct lightning strike on the tower I'd just left. It measured at the highest point of 200 kilometers.
Scary scene 4. I was at work as a bouncer in Missouri, and at midnight one night, I got sent to Walmart for some things. Driving down Highway 50, I caught a glimpse of a figure on the side of the road, ghostly corner of your eye kind of thing. I don't usually stop for strangers at midnight, but something in my gut made me slam on my brakes for that woman. I pulled over, and a young woman approached my passenger door. She was hyperventilating and really freaked out. I couldn't understand her, so I just told her to get in my truck. As we sat there for a moment, she tried to talk. Just then, a van pulled up behind me, still on the side of Highway 50, and a man jumped out and approached the passenger side window that was still down. He started grabbing the girl and cussing me out. In my biggest voice, I calmly explained he needed to back off. She was not leaving my truck. I told him, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm taking her wherever she wants to go. Scary scene 3. I was walking to school to my middle school, and this lady with a car pulled over next to me and called me Linda. That's not my name, but it was close enough, so I looked up. She apologized and explained she thought I was her grandkid. Then she offered me a ride to school. Except that I was already standing on the school grounds. I had a half-block walk before I needed to turn to walk into the building. When I said no, she tried to demand I get into the car. Scary scene 5. It was at the local mall a few years ago. I was there with a friend. She went into the bathroom, and I was waiting alone outside the bathroom. It was near closing hours, so it wasn't surprising that some guard told me that it was almost time to leave. But before I could respond, I took one good look at him, and my stomach turned. He was not a guard. But he acted like he was. He offered to escort me out of the building, but I noticed his badge was plastic and from some toy store. I kept telling him no and continued waiting for my friend. Every time I looked at him, my stomach turned and I got shivers. When my friend finally got out of the bathroom, he was gone. She asked me who I was talking to, and after I told her, we got out of there quick. A week after, I was there again to get some stuff, and I asked an actual security guard about the guy from earlier. Turns out they escorted him out of the mall several times, because he kept posing as a guard to get teenagers to come into his car.
Scary Scene 6. I'm a chalk muralist and was hired by my city to create art along walkways downtown for a festival. The thing with chalk art is you have to create it the same day it'll be displayed, so I had to get started around 4 a.m. in order to be fully finished by the time the festival began at 10 a.m. It was around 5 a.m., still dark, and I was just finishing up outside of a coffee shop located in a standalone building when I noticed a guy slowly walking down the street. He was several blocks away and far enough away, but still, something didn't sit right. So I kept my eye on him. When he got about a block away, he took a left down a street where I could no longer see him. As soon as that happened, my inner voice told me I needed to get the fuck out of there. Without even gathering my chalk or any other supplies, I grabbed my car keys and hauled ass to my car on the other side of the lot. As soon as I got in and locked my doors, I see him literally run out from the opposite side of the coffee shop where I'd seen him walking, right where I would have been on my hands and knees in a vulnerable position if I hadn't gotten up. I ended up waiting for about a half hour, grabbed my supplies, and came back once the sun was up. It put me behind on finishing my work on time, but I will gladly take that L any day.
Scary Scene 7. When I was 10 years old, my grandma was watching me and my younger siblings while our parents were out of town. We were eating pancakes in the living room and my siblings were watching cartoons, while I was reading the latest Harry Potter book that just came out the day before. My brother asked my grandma for more pancakes, and she started to get up. I was engrossed in my book, but out of the corner of my eye, I felt like she was taking longer than usual. She tried to get up, but her leg wouldn't move. She tried to pick it up with her hands, but one of her hands wouldn't move. I knew something was wrong, and I put down my book. Then, she fell out of her chair onto the floor. I screamed and she tried to tell me that she was fine. That her leg had just fallen asleep, and she had tripped. But her voice was coming out all slurred and only half of her face was moving. I recognized signs of a stroke from the babysitter's club. I ran into the kitchen. She had no cell phone back then and called 911. Well, first I called my best friend, the only phone number I could remember, and asked her mom if I need to dial an area code before 911. Then I called 911. Meanwhile, my siblings got the handyman who was mowing the backyard to come in and help out. The ambulance arrived and they took her to the hospital, and I don't remember much else. My best friend's mom must have somehow gotten hold of my parents, because they did eventually show up at the hospital. She was treated so quickly that she made a full recovery and is still alive and in good health almost 20 years later. Scary Scene 8. I was home alone and someone rang my doorbell. It was dark and I could see a person, but I couldn't see his face, only a shadow. I asked who it was. I didn't open the door because he never answered and went back to playing games. However, my dog would look straight at the door like he knew something was not right. After, like, 2 hours, my parents arrived and told me there were 2 police cars on our street. Apparently, that person was a burglar, and he knocked out one of my neighbor's windows and stole from their house. Scary Scene 9. During the first lockdown, I hadn't seen my dad, who lives alone, for 3 months, but we spoke on the phone every day. One night while I was drifting off to sleep at 2 a.m., I suddenly started feeling overwhelming anxiety. I was sweating and just felt like something was off. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I decided to ring my dad since he's a night owl and would pick up. But to my surprise, no answer. I woke my partner and told him something was really off and my dad hadn't answered his phone, which had my anxiety running tenfold at this point. He suggested if he still hadn't answered the phone in the morning, we would drive over and check on him. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling, so at 3 a.m., my partner and I got in the car and drove 3 hours to my dad's home. When we arrived at my dad's house, I walked in to find my dad staring at the wall. He was gray and yellow in color. He was slurring his words and utterly confused about where he was. I immediately called an ambulance. He spent the next 4 weeks in hospital with acute kidney failure from undiagnosed end-stage liver cirrhosis. The doctor told me if I'd arrived at his home a few hours later, I would have been calling an undertaker and not an ambulance. Sometimes anxiety can be a life-saving gift.